Good evening. Welcome to my channel. My name is David Okun. Been talking about the cost of living crisis. I've been talking about the cost of living for 10 months. The privilege of linking the cost of living with different factors, but the main function of the cost of living as a crisis is actually poverty, and something people should know straight away. The government may tell you something else, and technocrats may tell you something else, professionals may tell you something else, but I say to you that the reason there is the cost of living is because of poverty, and poverty is created by capitalism. Capitalism, for those who may be interested to know, capitalism is an economic system, and that is my aim is for people to understand this. And the reason I'm doing what I'm doing is so that people know what the cause of something is. If you want to solve a problem, then it is the best thing for you to do is to actually understand the problem. There are people in the world who want things done for them. Now, I live in Britain, in the United Kingdom, and if you live in the United Kingdom, then you know Britain and the British government. The British government is sometimes called the executive branch of the state. That is the information. Everybody living in the UK should be aware of that. Now, when I speak to people the way I am speaking, it doesn't mean you are stupid. I am not trying to lecture you on anything. I am actually giving my opinion so that people listening to me can understand what I'm saying. If they don't, then they can go to school to understand again what I'm talking about. Otherwise, when I am actually talking, I expect people to listen very well, because I take time and I take what I do very seriously. This topic is serious because you see, if you are facing poverty, if you work for a living, you are poor. If you're living in the UK, if you're living in America, Europe, if you're living in Africa, South Africa, which we are going to talk about in a minute. If you watch this video, watch it with the rest of the other videos which I produce. This is going to be part 3 of this recording, and it's going to complement the other recordings. So watching this, watch the other one. We are small as a channel, but there's time for everything. And over 2 billion, I think, of people view access this platform. This platform is really important. Whatever you do here, you celebrate it while it lasts, because nothing lasts forever. Leaders come, leaders go. We are, there is morning, there is daylight, there is evening, and there's night. Whatever begins stops. Social media is here to be utilized by us, but there is coming a time when things will begin to change. The majority of the population will be removed from social media, and the minority, who are the super rich, multi-billionaires, will be included. That is the system, how it works, and that is how it's going to be. And I have also spoken about the cultural economy. I'm talking about developmental economy. Developmental economy in all politics, policies, social functioning, security, environment, and all these other factors. Artificial intelligence, science, research, education, healthcare, system infrastructure, capital investment. You name them, this is development. We are doing very well. We have succeeded, and capitalism has been good to produce wealth, and we are happy with that. The world potentially should be a better place, a more peaceful place. But there is a problem in the sense that we have lost track of the cultural economic element of progress, which is actually the capacity to add value onto humanity, to value humanity over is by way of priority. I've been repeating this point, and I will be repeating it over and over, so that if someone misses it, if you have heard more than enough of this, you don't need to watch this video. Go and watch something you're interested in. But I will be repeating this point: the culture and the development element of progress. And because this is the key to this channel going forward, and this is what I've chosen to do, to examine the social function of systems, policies, constitution, laws in a general term. And people can get an overview to get a picture of their society, what is happening. And if you have food, you have energy, you have water coming into your home, you know how and why it is coming through government policy in relation to those functions. If the government do not provide, then it is not there. There is no any other reason why you should suffer the cost of living crisis if the government was providing what it should provide to help people who need help. The reason there is the cost of living crisis is because the government is not providing what it should provide for people who need help, for political and ideological reasons. There is no economic reasoning or any other form of reasoning. There is just politics, and a bad, rotten form of politics, which is actually commingled with capitalism, which has turned an economic system of capitalism into a weapon of mass destruction. It is destroying the 90% or more percent of the population. And this, if it doesn't stop, humanity will go extinct. This message needs to go out. If you are a child, if you are a youth, listen to what I'm saying. If you want to go and play with toys, you want to go to park to play. If you want to go to the street, and you're a young person, you're going to the street, you go and do whatever you want to go. But if you're actually a young person, you're on the street, be careful of knives and guns and gun crimes, because our culture has broken down. We need, as a solution, to re-educate ourselves culturally, so that we respect ourselves as children, as young people, as grown-ups, as elderly, as disabled, as able people, straight and gay people. We are all human. We are all in this together, black or white, male or female. This is not a gender-specific program. If you are a lady, if you are a woman, if you are a female, watch this video. If you're a man, a young man, or an elderly, watch this video if you have the time. If you don't, go and do something else. If you need to rest, go and sleep and rest and cook some nice food, eat it, drink some cup of tea, do whatever you want to do. But remember that if there is a problem in a modern society, under capitalism, you are responsible for it. Nobody is there to help you. The government here in the UK and across the globe. I spoke to Kenya recently. I spoke to about Africa. Now I'm speaking about South Africa. It's the same thing because of globalization. What you see in the UK, what you see in Europe and America, it is actually replicated globally because of harmonization. These are terminologies associated with capitalism. Okay? If you want to learn what I'm talking about in detail, go to the library. If you have the time. If you don't have the time, do something else. You have a choice to do what you need to do, which makes you happy. Some people actually do things deliberately to make themselves sad. That is your choice. If you want to be sad, be sad. If you want to be happy, be happy. You see, if you want to go into town, go to town. If you want to go into village, go to village. If you're sick, go to the hospital. It's your responsibility. If you are starving, you are hungry, go to the supermarket or to your garden. If you have a garden, collect some food, cook it and eat it. Drink some water if you have it. If not, then you have to think twice. Because if you have no food and water and energy, potentially you're going to die. And that's what the cost of living represents. The basic essential needed for survival is missing. So in the UK, we have something called food bank, which is wrong because the United Kingdom is the 7th richest country in the world. South Africa is one of the wealthiest countries in the world, certainly probably the wealthiest in Africa. I've looked at Kenya, look at South Africa. My focus is actually to prove that Africa is potentially the richest continent in the world. Kenya and Tanzania and South Africa, I'm actually talking about them to help viewers appreciate the wealth pertaining in these countries. So pay attention if you're going to watch it. If you're not going to watch it, I'm happy for you to go and do something else. If you're going to watch this video, I'm happy to have you to watch it. Leave a comment below, click notification bell, and leave a comment and watch the video. If you learn something, let me know what you have learned, and of course you take responsibility for yourself. If you don't want to take responsibility for yourself, somebody else will, and that somebody else is the government. But the government is closing down. The government is closing down because of privatization. That is the meaning of privatization. If you want me to do a research on privatization, then let me know. And also let me know the terms and conditions, because if I'm to do a research, I need to be paid to do it, because I don't have money to do complicated research. The information I'm talking about is mundane. Everybody knows about it. I'm only designing a method to make you connect this to the cost of living crisis. That's what I'm trying to do. You have heard before about capitalism. You know, probably you don't know what capitalism is. It's an economic system practiced everywhere, in the West, in the East. If you know what the East is, then fine. If not, go to the library or go online. Find out what the East is, what the West is. If you are in Britain, if you're in America, if you're in Europe, you're in the West, including Israel, in the Middle East, because they have Western ideology. If you're in the East, you are probably in Russia, China, Ukraine, or a hybrid of West and East. Ukraine is probably a midway. Some Ukrainian probably are the Eastern ideology. They are communistic in something called communism, which used to be a political system. There is something also called capitalism. It's also a political system, although experts are going to tell you is an economic system, which it is. But decisions made to affect a capitalism is actually politics. And that is what I'm laboring to say, to discuss with you. And thank you so much for those who have been supporting me and appreciating what I'm doing. And what I'm doing is to acknowledge that we are together as human beings. And we rise, we fall together. You see, we party, we go to party, we learn and become wise. That's what we do. We are here to stay. We're not going anywhere. We are not aliens. We're not going to the outer space. We're in the world. This is our world. You see, if you are an adult, if you are a man or whoever you are, you get a partner and live with them. If you are lucky enough, you have children. If you are lucky enough, you don't have children, because if you have children, some people are happy with that. If you don't have children, some people are also happy with that. Whichever your situation, make the best use of. If you are sick, go to the hospital or do something else. Some people meditate to get well. Some people go to witch doctor. If you want to know what a witch doctor is, then ask somebody who can tell you what a witch doctor. If you don't go online, go on the YouTube. You come to YouTube channel, you're going to look for, you type witch doctor. The chances are you're going to find a channel which actually talks about witch doctor or talk about God. These are spirits. There is a physical, there is a spiritual. What you see physical, what you don't see spiritual. If you have a spiritual high, you can see spiritual things. Then you are human. If you are an alien, then you talk to me, leave a comment below and let me know how it feels to be an alien. Because I don't know, I'm human. If you want to know how it feels to be a human, then talk to me, leave a comment below, then I will talk to you. Ask me a question, how it feels to be human, then I will let you know. All I know is that humans are supposed to be happy. And if you know what is happening in your life, you know, whether it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in Africa, whether you're in some other part of the world, as long as you're in the world, you understand the environment you live in. You see, you will understand your life, how your life works. You know, whether you're happy, whether you're sad, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're sick or healthy, married or single, children with children or without children. That is the situation you face. Making the best use of it. And that is how people are. That's who we are. You see, we are able to do the best of the best. We are also able to do the worst of the worst. The choice is yours. If you can breathe, if you can drink water, if you can access energy, if you can access food, then you know why the cost of living is important. It's a crisis. That's why I'm talking about it. You can access shelter. healthcare, transportation. You see, if you are happy, if you can live with your friends, if you are in a position of freedom, whether where you don't need to comply with the rules set by somebody who rules over you, such as what happens now with the state. And the state, the government, especially in the UK, in other parts of the world, is now trying to say you should look after yourself. They no longer want to rule over you. If that is true, then it is good, because we, the people, seek freedom. The government, when we are ready, should release us, to let us go. Look after yourself, make money, get out of poverty. And the government is sending that message. That's why it's closing down the public sector, so that we are independent, so that we are free, so that we are released to find our way in the world. Like, people who rule over themselves. That's the meaning of freedom. That is our hope. And as long as we can visit our friends and family, sit down over a meal and talk to them and be happy, you see, and take control of our life, to make decisions for ourselves. That is what freedom means. And that is what the cost of living is presenting us, the challenge the cost of living presents us with. If you suffer from the cost of living, it limits your freedom. Right now, you have a choice to look after yourself, or talk to the government, talk to your member of parliament, your MP, and talk to your family, talk to your community, come together, speak. And if the government wants to set you free from the grip of the state, then it should give you money, it should pay for your house, it should give you money so that you build your own hospital as a community. Take some of the money from the super rich, because there are people who are so rich, multimillionaires and multi-billionaires, who do not even pay tax, who do not know what to do with their money. They just throw the money in the bin. As they do, the rest of the world are lacking. And that is what I'm talking about, the inequality, the economic inequality. A lot of people, 70, 80%, 90% of the population are trapped in poverty. If you do not want the word poverty, that is okay, but it is real. That is what the cost of living crisis is about. And the cost of living crisis is not the only thing in life. It is just a symptom, it's a sign. It represents a challenge. It represents a challenge. It also represents an opportunity for us to be free from the state, to get out of poverty, to become rich out, to negotiate with the government, to negotiate with the rich, to give some of their money to us. And for us also to use opportunities such as the library, YouTube, social media, to learn how to make money, how to build our own houses, how to build our own cars, hospitals, schools. There should come a time when you're sick, you have to really treat yourself, because you're a technician. Artificial intelligence, you are having access to artificial intelligence. You are building your own equipment, your robots. Instead of human doctors, you build your own robotic doctors. That is the future. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to break it down so that we understand what we are talking about in simple terms. And my expectation is that somebody somewhere is going to join me in this discussion, and it is, in my opinion, it is exciting, it is interesting, because challenges are good things for us. We face challenges all the time, on the streets, in schools, in hospitals, at home. And if you meet those challenges, you feel good about life. That is actually progress, development, cultural proficiency. And that's what I'll be talking about. I'm going to do a review based on some materials which I have here, talking about South Africa. We're going to look at colonialism by the Dutch. We're going to look at the Dutch Cape Colony, the Boer Republic, and we're going to link this to the cost of living. Because see, the government is still in control of society, and I know we want to be free, and we will be free one day, but right now you still pay taxes, you still have to go to work. We don't have technology to work for us, so we have to work with our own hands. That limits our freedom. And if we don't have job opportunities, it means we are going to have no money. We are going to suffer the cost of living crisis. As I said, the cost of living crisis, whether we like it or not, is a symptom of something greater than just me and the cost of living. Symptom means what it represents, something other than itself. The cost of living is evidence of poverty, and poverty is evidence of a form of state violence and also incompetence. Because what the state does under capitalism, it runs capitalism as an economic system, but it shuts down the public sector. When the public sector is shut down, it produces poverty for the majority of the population. A lot of people like to think they are rich. That is okay. If you work for a living, you may be rich or poor, but that is your choice. If you need to borrow money to buy a car, some people actually borrow money to buy food with credit card, debit card. If you have to really get an overdraft, you maybe pay for fuel in your car or pay rent, then you are probably poor. It's for you to decide. If you think you're rich, then that is fine. But I think rich people are actually multimillionaires and multi-billionaires. That is what I think. You may think differently. You may be working for a living and you think you're rich. That is okay. That is your choice. But somewhere along the line, if you are finding it difficult to deal with the cost of living, any crisis happening like COVID-19, and you struggle to get appointment in the hospital because you have to use the public service, and you have to queue for weeks and months or even years for operation, then because we are using the government, the public service, people who use private service can get an appointment within 24 hours, at most maybe 2 weeks, because they are paying for it. They're rich people. So there's a parallel economy within there's economy within economy. There are two countries, one for the rich, one for the poor. The rich people are actually using private systems, and the poor people are using public system. If you depend on public transport, you're probably most likely to be poor. And if you have to use a private jet or a luxury limousine, you're probably most likely to be rich. It's your choice. You have to decide for yourself which class you are in. If you think you are a millionaire, you're a rich person, or even if you work for a living, if you feel rich, that is fine. The cost of living is here to stay. It's a crisis. It may change from good to bad worse, or it is actually bad enough now. It could get worse or better. And that's the way to see. And whatever happens is best if an individual is prepared. So let us look at colonialism in Africa. Colonialism means foreign powers went to Africa and colonized it. The Europeans went to Africa and colonized Africa, and when they colonized Africa, they turned Africans into slaves. And the rest of the world was smiling at, laughing at Africa, thinking something was wrong with Africa. Some people actually think Africans are animals, but you see, other people also think the modern humans came from Africa. So Africa are more human than the rest of the world in that context. If that is a fact of history, that modern humans were first discovered in Africa, it means the rest of the world were populated by Africans who came from Africa. Whether you're black or white, rural root is in Africa. And to me, being an African, I'm excited about that. It means we are not really monkeys, we are not chimpanzees, we are humans. We are actually better humans than other species of humans. If you want to put it that way, that is fine. Because if people came from Africa, so we are the root, not and maybe the branches as well. Because everyone is an African. In other words, we just live in different areas of the world, geographically or historically. And that's why I'm looking at South Africa. Because South Africa was ruled by white minorities. They created something called apartheid. Talk about it in the other video. So we look at the Dutch episode. Some people call the Boer republics. Somebody called Charles Davidson Bells, this 19th century. They are actually portrayed in paintings. Names like John van Riebeeck, the man who founded the first European settlement in South Africa, arriving in somewhere called Table Bay in 1652. So these are some of the information. We are doing a review of this material and linking it with the cost of living, the logic of correlating these pieces of information is to actually demonstrate that Africa is a continent, is full of countries, and these countries are containers of wealth, gold, diamonds, and petroleum, you name it. All sorts of wealth are in Africa. In South Africa, there was some part of Africa called the Gold Coast in West Africa, and the homeland of slavery, historical and modern. Africans are actually rushing to the West to look for work, and so Africa represents wealth, and wealth represent the cost of living when it is mismanaged, when it is not handled properly. That's why I'm actually talking about the history, how Africa was actually colonized. Because when the foreigners colonized Africa, they also took away the wealth of the Africans. That's what I'm trying to talk about. When they took away the wealth of Africans, then Africans became poor. To this day, Africa faces some of the worst poverty, including South Africans. And that's why I'm looking at history, how African wealth was looted by the Europeans, and they haven't paid Africans back. By the early 17th century, the Portuguese maritime power was starting to decline, and English was and the Dutch merchants competed to oust Portugal from its lucrative monopoly on the spice trade. Spice trade is what you eat. Spice is like what you use it to cook. This was really food product for the super rich, for the ruling class, and they were worth like gold and diamonds. It was really very important. So these Europeans used to fight over trade control of these trading places and routes, and that complexity led to the colonizing of Africa, not just Africa, but countries and continents around the world, including India. So you talk about representatives of the British East India Company periodically call at the Cape in search of provisions as early as 1601, but later came to favor Ascension Island and St. Helena as alternative ports of refuge. So the English were naming India. There's something called British East India Company. This was actually a corporate agency which was promoting capitalism and trading. Colonialism is about the expanding of capitalism. So that is why it is important capitalism remains essential, because it actually helps explain the cost of living crisis. And so that is the connection. When I talk about a topic, I have wealth in my mind. I also have poverty on my mind, because I know where there is wealth, there is no cost of living crisis. I also know where there is poverty, there is the cost of living crisis. And this message must go out, whether we like it or not. That is my purpose, and I think I'm doing the right thing, because if we are informed, then we are well equipped to look after ourselves better. And whether you're a young person, whether you are an elderly, whether you are male or female, you take responsibility for yourself, and information is power. And that's how you get your independence. If you don't know anything, you need to learn something so that you become independent. You win your freedom by achieving enlightenment. So that is how it works. So when we talk about representatives of the British East India Companies periodically call at the Cape in search of provisions as early as 1601, but later came to favor Ascension Island and St. Helena as alternative ports of refuge. So these people, travelers, always look for shelter. Shelter is essential because security, safety. That's why up to now, the British, the Western power, are building towns and cities because they saw it from nature. They were living in caves. They were living in, in caves and tunnels. They used to live there. As civilization grew, we built cities and towns for protection, to store our wealth, and to provide security. And that is the language of capitalism. The purpose of wealth, which is a good thing, which is something we need to pursue. And good survivors are actually wealthy survivors. And poor survivors are actually poor survivors. If you're poor, your life can be cut short. So all the poor people should work hard to get out of poverty, and then work your way some more and get enlightenment and riches. And that's the whole idea. So when they came to East Africa, they were using all the resources to provide wealth and to secure those wealth, and also to protect their lives. That is the idea, and that is what you need help wealth for. That's what you need capitalism to maintain power, protection, and also security and safety in all sectors, including food, energy, and trading opportunity and privileges and control, and ultimately power. And that is the essence of capitalism, and that is what created and maintained imperialism. And that's why I'm talking about it, is directly and indirectly linked to the current cost of living crisis in South Africa and also across the globe. If you want any detail, if you obsessed with statistics, then go and do a research yourself and provide an analysis yourself. You can bring the information to me and share it with me if you want me to talk about your research. Do the research yourself anyway. Do the compiling of the information yourself and bring it to me, then I will do a presentation on it. Thank you very much. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment below. And I'm so happy to be here. And sometimes we get more people viewing, sometimes we get less people viewing. I'm happy either way, because my primary aim is to get this message out. And you'll meet me along the way. You can meet me now and work with me, or you will meet me later. Either way, we are going to meet again. We will meet now, or we will meet in the future. I'm happy, and you're welcome. And watch these videos, share, leave a notification bell, click notification bell, and click like, share with family and friends. We are looking at South Africa. And the behavior of the British. The British was a global power. This was in the 1600s. And we are also linking everything we review here with the cost of living crisis. The cost of living crisis is the fundamental crisis now happening after the cost of living crisis. We expect something else, because before the cost of living crisis, we had COVID-19 crisis. Before COVID-19 crisis, we had the Brexit crisis, which is called for global. It was global. Before Brexit, we had the financial crash of 2007 and 2008, which began in America, and it also went global. Trust me, we had terrorism also. After the cost of living crisis, when it stops, we are going to get another crisis. Watch the space. So Dutch interest was aroused after 1647, when two employees of the Dutch East India Company was shipwrecked at the Cape for several months. So we want the British East India, and also we had the Dutch East India companies. So the Dutch East India Company were for the Dutch people, and the British East India Company was for the British. The reason they are talking about India, because India was the earliest area of imperialism, of colonialism. And the details are in the lettering and also in the libraries. If you're interested, go there and look for more studies if it interests you. Leave a comment below if it interests you. If I have opportunity, I can do a research and talk about one topic or another in fair detail. But now I'm talking generally, because my focus is actually to demonstrate that there is wealth. There was wealth in Africa and around the world, being controlled by capitalists who wouldn't give it to anybody, and you can't blame them because it's theirs. And that's why there was an idea of a government to run a public sector, to provide public service, to help those who do not have wealth, the majority of the population, those who work for a living, the 90% of the population who work for a living, who are susceptible to crisis, who need housing. They need housing. 90% of the population need housing because they do not have money to buy a house outright. If you have enough money to buy a house outright, then you are rich. If you have to borrow to buy anything, then think again if you think you are rich. It's not for me to say you are poor or rich, because rich people feel insulted if you call them rich, and poor people also feel insulted if you call them poor. People get upset. I want you to be happy. So feel what you feel, but also remember that we have a job to do as people to survive crises such as the cost of living. So upon their return to Holland, they reported favorably on the Cape's potential as a warehouse and garden for provisions to stock passing ships for long voyages. So they went home to Holland, these Dutch people. So the sailors were able to survive by obtaining fresh water and meat from the natives. They like Africa. They love South Africa because there was food, there was plenty. They didn't have the cost of living crisis now, where they couldn't access food, because the sailors were able to survive by obtaining fresh water and meat from the natives. There was an abundance of drinks and food in abundance. So when they returned to Holland, their home, the Dutch people, they reported favorably on the Cape's potential as a warehouse and garden for provision of stock to stock passing ships for long voyages. So what they did, they found gardens and warehouses. Africa was awash with food and provisions. So the Dutch explorers and traders saw those as actually source of stock for passing ships for long voyages, because they travel long distances to do trade and to do exploits, as in the accumulating wealth, which is what capitalism is. Capitalism is the accumulation of wealth. So these traders roam the globe through seas, through land, and all the rest of it to get lucrative products for trade, and thereby enriching themselves and accessing power to actually command under the auspice of capitalism. And that then is the mode of oppression, where the fittest actually are survivors and the weak actually perish, because that is a jungle society. The trading places are actually a form of jungle, where the fit survive, the fittest survive, and the weakest actually perish. So that is the meaning of competition. If you look at sports at the Olympics, Formula 1 sports, if you're weak, they just swallow you alive. That is what capitalism means. That is what marketization means. If you're weak, if you're poor, you are eaten alive. The super rich, who are actually 10 or 20%, are like predators. They are like big lions in African savannas. They are going to chew your head off and chop your head off, and maybe suck your brains out. Because it's like a jungle, it's survival of the fittest. That is what the market system is. It's dog eat dogs. The weak are not given reprieve or anything like that. So it is your duty to survive. The cost of living is a sign of the times. What I'm talking about. They also showed vegetables in the fertile soil. So they were actually cultivating, they're sowing seeds, growing vegetables. They were actually looking to settle in a way, because you see, this is what what traveling is. You have to find trading posts. That's how trade cities and towns were developed, because you needed trade here. Where some places where when you're traveling, you actually find accommodation and find comfort. So that's the story of the building of what became modern South Africa, and it's a similar story of across the globe of colonialism, of imperialism. It was driven by capitalism and by capitalists. The quest for wealth and power and dominance, and in the process, the weak was enslaved, who were the majority. The lucky few who became super powerful became masters, and that is still happening now. The pyramid of power comes to mind as a reminder of how the system looked like. The few are at the top and the many are at the bottom. The few who are supposed to sit on the poor majority, who are actually at the base of the pyramid system. They are actually to provide comfort for the rulers. Literally, some slaves used to carry slave masters on their shoulders. On, I don't know what they were called. They were like vehicles. Slaves were like vehicles because there were no vehicles or animals, so they carried masters on their shoulders. So in 1652, a century and a half after the discovery of the Cape Sea route, Jan van Riebeeck established a victualling station at the Cape of Good Hope, at what would become Cape Town, on behalf of the Dutch East India Company. So the Cape of Good Hope. So if you find a treasure island, beautiful places, full of riches, full of comfort, then you describe them in colorful terms to beautify them in your language, reflecting your wonderful experience. That represented South Africa at that time. The Cape of Good Hope was the name they gave to this area. The Dutch people are establishing their stations, their trading posts, where they would come and have good time in their seasons of expanding capitalism, the market economic system, which is actually part and parcel of the globalization as we understand it today. These were the rooting of the global economic system, the expanding of capitalism, and also imperialism, because it involves rule. The powerful and the rich rule over the weak and the many, and that is why the cost of living crisis across the globe, centering in more in other, in featuring more intensely in other areas than in some areas than in others. So in time, the Cape became home to a large population of Brigadine, also known as Vrijburgers. Vrijburgers are literally free citizens. Former company employees who stayed in Dutch territories overseas after serving their contracts. So these people became free. You keep what you find. So they became rich and free from labor, free from poverty, free from lack, because they were wealthy, super rich with power, with slaves who served them. They began living like gods, like kings and queens, which is still representative of modern day capitalism in the pyramid of the power economy, also known as globalization. So Dutch traders also brought thousands of enslaved people to the fledgling colony from Indonesia, Madagascar, and parts of Eastern Africa. So the slaves actually were brought in their thousands, servants of the masters, the Dutch, they were their traders. These traders were turned into masters, owning thousands of slaves, which they moved from one place to another at will, and also to boost the economy of the colony, which was described as being fledgling. These were brought from Indonesia, the areas of Madagascar, and parts of Eastern Africa. This was actually the meat on the bones of capitalism, of imperialism, which occurred then to form what is now South Africa. And this is a story replicated across Africa and the globe, also known as globalization. It's going on now, and something never changed. And that's why we are talking about the cost of living. That is the correlation between capitalism and the cost of living crisis and other crises which normally affect people at the bottom. The people at the top are actually masters who control policy and estates of all sorts, and they call the shot, and they live in wealth, and they have few, and sitting at the top of the food chain as it is today. And that is the essence of this conversation as we look forward to see what happened to create what is now South Africa. A story replicated across Africa and also across the globe in what we now know as globalization. This led to the development of a new ethnic group, the Cape Coloreds, most of whom adopted the Dutch language and Christian faith. So we're talking about the development of a new ethnic group. They are called the Cape Colored. Their colors were neither here nor there. They were neither white or black. They were colored, and they were actually occupying the Cape area. Cape area was actually like a paradise on earth, which makes South Africa to this day the fulcrum of globalization, at least in the heart of Africa. So you find that Christian faith commingling with the Dutch languages also produce a minority who are either colored or outright white, who rule in the name of capitalism, now known in recent times as apartheid. Apartheid actually is a component of capitalism, is also a component of imperialism, as seen in history and also in contemporary global economic system. These are the eastward expansion of Dutch colonies ushered in a series of wars with the westerly migrating Xhosa tribe known as the Xhosa Wars, as both sides competed for the pasture land near the Great Fish River, which the colonies desired for grazing cattle. Now there is the scrambling for resources as they move eastward, expanding eastward. The Dutch colonies ushered in a series of wars with the southeasterly migrating Xhosa tribe. So the incomer actually faced resistance from locals in defense, the local in defending their territories, but the more powerful Dutch people coming with the greater and more powerful storm to crush the tribes such as the Xhosa in what became known as the Xhosa Wars, and as both sides competed for the pasture land. Because you see, if you have animals then you need land to keep your animals. But the colonialists do everything because the capitalism is a state, an estate where winners take all. You take the land, you take the contents of the land, including non-human and human content of that land. The humans becoming slave. Animals is part slave but part food. Take your pick. That is actually the beauty of capitalism. Winners take all, and losers lose everything. Even whatever they have is taken away and handed to the super rich. That is what is causing the cost of living, as we understand it now, as a crisis. This is the beginning, and it is globalizing. It is globalistic, and it's going to carry on unless we do something to change it. So the rich beggars who became independent farmers on the frontier were known as Boers, with some adopting semi-nomadic lifestyle being denoted as trek Boers. If you're a trekker, I mean you move a lot. They're like nomads. But they were actually explorers. They were looking to see what is where and what they can find. They were expansionists, they were colonizers. That was what they are. The Boers formed loose militias, which they termed commandos, and forged alliances with Khoisan peoples to repel Xhosa raid. Divide and rule tactics by the master. If you find local conflicting communities, you pick one side and actually intensify division, and you in the end emerge the winner, enslaving both. Divided, if slaves are divided, then they are ruled over even all the more, and that is actually free meat to the master, who is an expert, an avid predator. Both sides launched bloody but inconclusive offensive and sporadic violence, often accompanied by livestock theft, remained common in several decades. It was a jungle, no rules. They were thieves, they were looters and murderers. Both the Africans and the incomers, they were so violent, and it was chaos. But you see, the people who came, the Europeans invading Africa, was superior. They were outstanding military system with advanced weaponry, and that's how Africa was colonized. It was bloodshed, it was bloody. It was actually one of the most evil episodes the world ever saw. Both the Europeans and Africans were responsible for that. And that is why today there is capitalism alive and kicking, and as a result, we have the cost of living crisis for the many, not for the few. The few are actually wealthy, taking money from the rich. That is, this language haven't changed. The decades may have, but the system is the same. We are going to stop this video here. Thank you for your help staying with me. Next time we meet, we are going to look up British colonialism and the great threat of the colonizers, the invasion of Cape Colony and the British Botswana land and the colony of Natal. Thank you for watching, and leave a comment below and subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed. Share my videos with family and friends, and enjoy yourself. And if you enjoy yourself, let me know. Leave a comment below. If you didn't enjoy yourself, leave a comment below also, and then let me know how best to improve this process. Thank you so much. Bye bye.